Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy, here to talk to you about a special 3-game slate coming up this week. That's right, it's Thanksgiving. We have the Thanksgiving 3-game slate on FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo that we're going to be playing here before the main slate rolls around on Sunday. Video is going to be a little different here. We're going to talk about all the positions in a short 10, 15-minute video here, go through everything that I think the field is going to be considering as far as players are concerned. It's going to be a strategy live stream on this channel from Brian, Jack, the builder of the DFS Magic lineup builder tool that we have here at Occupy Fantasy. They're going to be talking through some short slate strategy for you, so you're certainly not going to want to miss that. But first, before you consider strategy, you obviously have to consider the players that you're going to be using in order to deploy them into those strategies effectively. So let's dive right on into this and talk about them here. As always, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment below if you have any questions. We would be happy to talk to you about the Thanksgiving slate or anything else that you'd like to talk about. So switching over to the quarterback positions, what I want to talk about first. Big picture on this slate, Dallas and Las Vegas, the middle game on the slate, 50.5 point total. Dallas favored by a touchdown, a little over a touchdown last I looked. Clearly the highest implied team total offense here on this slate, 29 points expected. Dak Prescott, do expect him to come in slightly under Josh Allen in terms of his anticipated DraftKings fantasy points in general in this game. But as you can see here, he actually does project as the best value at the position on both the DraftKings and the FanDuel slates. Given the high team total and given that, do you think Dak Prescott is going to be the most popular player at quarterback on this slate? Yahoo's pricing obviously being a little different, $200 salary cap. I think Trevor Siemian has some interesting appeal. Underdog side of that game against the Bills in the primetime window. I think you really have to hold your nose if you're going to be playing Trevor Siemian and be stacking him with some New Orleans options. But as you'll discover as we go through the rest of the positions here, New Orleans looks like a really strong option over on Yahoo. Yahoo, by the way, did want to talk about that really quickly. They're running this $1 million prize pool. Everyone wins Thanksgiving Baller for Thursday afternoon. It's a $1 contest. Every single person doubles up, wins $2. You have a chance to take away $100,000 if you play this contest appropriately using the high-risk contest strategies we have outlined for you in the NFL DFS strategy guide over at OccupyFantasy.com. That all dovetails nicely maybe with the fact that it looks like the Saints are an underpriced value on this slate, looking at Trevor Siemian here at the quarterback position. At the running back position, I think the most popular thing you're going to see people do is play David Montgomery. David Montgomery projects for the most fantasy points on this slate. He's probably the most likely running back on here to get a ton of opportunities, go over the 100-yard bonus, get you a touchdown or two against the Detroit Lions in the early window. The Bears averaging, I think, over 130 rushing yards per game on the season. 132, only surpassed by the Dallas Cowboys with 133. So, Montgomery definitely going to be a strong play, as you can see here, projecting for the most fantasy points, projecting to be the best value on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. I do think this is something the field is going to be looking at. Potentially playing Tony Pollard on a shorter slate. Tony Pollard getting a little bit more work lately. Zeke getting hurt in Week 11 against the Kansas City Chiefs. In basically a primetime spot. It was the national game at 4 p.m. on CBS. So everybody saw Zeke kind of get a little nicked up there. Short week here. Maybe people anticipating Pollard playing more. I do think Pollard is an interesting value, definitely a better value than Elliott, but not projected for nearly as many points if the workload holds up. Elliott's still the main guy in this backfield. DeAndre Swift is priced in this no man's land where he's always like a mid-range value on slates. And here he's the second most expensive running back that you can realistically consider. We're assuming Alvin Kamara is not going to play on Thanksgiving. We're assuming Mark Ingram will be in. So obviously keep that in mind. If Kamara plays, I think that makes Swift the third most expensive. But definitely think Swift is still someone you're going to have to consider, even with the Lions being underdogs. And actually, we did get some news that Jared Goff is expected to start here now, potentially here on Tuesday afternoon. So that does potentially elevate the production of the entire Lions offense. Swift has been the most productive player in this offense regardless of situation. So I think he's really the one Lion you'll see most people consider and play no matter what happens here on Thanksgiving. The Raiders, obviously Josh Jacobs standing out as the best value at the position at running back on Yahoo. He's still the clear RB1 playing ahead of Kenyon Drake, who's mostly involved in change of pace or in the passing game. Jacobs here, interesting spot for him. Obviously, the Raiders' offense has really struggled the last couple of weeks. given all the turmoil going on with that team. But Josh Jacobs probably the best option to consider at running back. Devin Singletary has been the clear number one running back for the Bills the last couple of weeks, although you got to be careful here because they're not playing three guys. Zach Moss still getting his touches, and Matt Breida is actually also working in the red zone, getting some touches down that way. Mark Ingram, have him at the bottom of the table here. That's because he himself is questionable now for Thursday evening, and obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara. That's kind of an interesting spot to watch as we get closer to Thursday evening. Without Kamara, Ingram, a great play. With Kamara, Ingram, a not so great play. So that's kind of how I'm treating it. Without Kamara, I'm probably very interested in getting Ingram into any lineups that I'm playing, but going to have to wait until Thursday to really know what's going to happen there, unless the Saints do us a favor and rule Kamara out early. The wide receiver position. The Dallas Cowboys have Amari Cooper out on the COVID inactive list, and we're assuming CeeDee Lamb is not going to play because he has a concussion, is in the concussion protocol. Dallas Cowboys camp saying that there's a chance Lamb could play here on Tuesday afternoon, but we can't really project that. We're going to have to wait and see. Gallup, the clear best value at wide receiver on FanDuel, given his price. So we're going to want to have a lot of exposure to him there, but really everywhere if this is going to be the highest implied team total offense on the slate. Biggest favorite, Gallup, best weapon in the passing game. Assuming that Lamb is out and Cooper is out, Cedric Wilson was the main wide receiver that stepped up without either of those guys on the field against Kansas City Chiefs. Cedric Wilson had 7 targets in the second half alone in that game against the Chiefs. Clearly going to want to consider Cedric Wilson Jr. in your Thanksgiving lineups as a result, especially here on DraftKings at just $3,500. Wide receiver 2, running a lot of slot routes for Dallas, a great option to have there in your lineups. Stephon Diggs, clearly the best wide receiver for Josh Allen. I think the Bills will probably be the second most popular offense people will be stacking on this slate. Obviously, he's the most expensive wide receiver on this slate. So a little bit of game theory here to talk about, and I'm sure that's something Brian and Jack will be going over in our strategy stream that'll be happening on Wednesday. Going to want to check that out for sure. Darnell Mooney, last week, Allen Robinson was out. Andy Dalton came into the game. Andy Dalton is going to start again here on Thanksgiving. Andy Dalton starting is good news for these receivers. He's less mobile than Fields, so he's going to be relying on his arm. And it's a good matchup here against the Lions for the Bears. So I think Mooney's going to have a really strong opportunity here, especially if Robinson is unable to play once again. Hunter Renfrow is the main guy at wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders. They added Deshaun Jackson after he was cast off from the Rams. They obviously have Bryan Edwards. They have Zay Jones, who's kind of stepped up in terms of the route running role without Henry Ruggs in the roster any longer. But none of these guys are commanding the opportunity at the same rate as Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver. I think he's the best wide receiver for the Raiders to consider. Not necessarily a great value. He's priced sort of in the mid-range here, probably because this is the highest total game. But probably going to want to consider Renfrow as one of the options, especially if you're stacking the Cowboys here on the slate. Saints wide receivers, look at this, especially on the Yahoo slate. I think they're the best values. Project for modest fantasy point production. Traquan Smith has really been targeted heavily since rejoining the lineup, especially by Trevor Siemian, especially without having Kamara available the last few games. So definitely think he's going to be super interesting here. Marcus Callaway taking a step back in this offense, but still clearly a top 2 wide receiver for the Saints. When you have 2 Saints wide receivers that are interesting values, when you have a Saints quarterback that's interesting value on Yahoo, that may be a good place to go in terms of a high-risk exposure to consider here in Week 12 on Thanksgiving on the Yahoo slate. Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders. Obviously, Beasley, slot route specialist for the Bills. Emmanuel Sanders with a high average depth of target route tree for Josh Allen, so he'll be an important piece to consider in your lineups. The Detroit Lions are never fun to consider in 2021, the winless Lions on offense. But with Jared Goff potentially returning to the starting lineup, it does provide a boost for all the weapons. And one of the most interesting weapons is minimum price Josh Reynolds here on DraftKings. Really minimum price across the board, frankly. Josh Reynolds was signed off the street after he was released by the Titans. They weren't really using him effectively or utilizing him really at all. Immediately played the most snaps at receiver for the Lions last week. 90% of the snaps ran the most routes. So Josh Reynolds on the outside, running the most routes in a game where the Lions are likely trailing, where it's not going to take a lot for him to maybe crack into the optimal lineup. Maybe he catches a long pass for touchdown. Josh Reynolds is the most interesting Lions wide receiver on this slate. Rookie wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. Pray to the sun god if you want him to have a great day. Amon-Ra St. Brown would be the other receiver who's the main guy here in Week 12 against the Bears. Noah Brown, also a mid-price wide receiver on a better offense. Noah Brown would be the wide receiver who lines up opposite of Michael Gallup on the outside if CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are out. Didn't really do anything in the second half against the Chiefs other than get his cardio in, but he was the third wide receiver for them with CeeDee Lamb ruled out for the rest of that game. So expect the Cowboys to bring a lot of Gallup and Brown on the outside with Cedric Wilson running slot routes when they utilize 3 wide receivers here on Thanksgiving. Tight end position, pretty straightforward. I think a lot of people are going to pay up at this position for Darren Waller or TJ Hawkinson. Darren Waller, despite the high price tag, actually projects as the best FanDuel value because he projects for the most fantasy points at the position on the slate by a wide margin. Dawson Knox for the Bills is the best DraftKings value because the pricing's a little creative. Kind of close in terms of value to Bears tight end Cole Kmet, who's clearly still the top tight end there for the Bears. And now Juwan Johnson for the Saints is an interesting value to consider on DraftKings with Adam Troutman expected to miss time 4 to 6 weeks. Definitely won't be playing on Thanksgiving. Cole Kmet, also the best value at the position on Yahoo, which looks like it'll be a little bit different than the other sites based off of my projections here and how the values shake out based off of the salaries. That is really kind of what I want to talk about position by position. So let's go through and run through it again for you. Looks like Dak Prescott is going to be the most popular quarterback on this slate. Projects for about the most fantasy points on the slate, just behind Josh Allen, but he's the best value because he's cheaper. Dallas with the highest implied team total on offense. David Montgomery, probably the most popular player on this slate. Mid-range price, especially on DraftKings. Bears prefer to run the football. David Montgomery has taken over the backfield since he's returned from injured reserve, and they're playing the worst team in the league on a 3-game slate, so everybody's going to play David Montgomery. At wide receiver, without Amari Cooper, without CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup going to be the most popular play at wide receiver for sure. Darnell Mooney, if the Bears are without Allen Robinson once again, have Andy Dalton under center, probably going to be a good play. And Saints players in general look like the best values on Yahoo to try and maybe go after that really, really intriguing contest with $100,000 up top. Nobody going to be necessarily stacking the Saints, and the Saints stand out as a really strong value here. 2 wide receivers that are good values. We have a quarterback here in Trevor Siemian who's a good value. And if Alvin Kamara doesn't play, Mark Ingram, a good value as well. That's kind of what I'm thinking on this slate here for Thanksgiving. It'll be an interesting one. I'm not going to promise it'll be a fun one. A lot of ugly teams on this slate, but it's a DFS slate. And let's be honest with yourselves. You're going to be playing it on Thanksgiving here to give yourself a little additional fun on top of the holiday with family and friends. Please enjoy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll be back with the videos talking about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers on Friday. That's when they'll be dropping on the channel. So keep an eye out for those. We'll be happy to share those with you. As always, keep an eye out for the daily plug. There will be a daily plug for the Thanksgiving slate on OccupyFantasy.com on Wednesday evening. It'll be kind of a hybrid of single game plugs that Brian Jester does and some of the game stack opportunities that we have in the Sunday plug for you to consider. As always, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you can get more content like this, and leave any comments below if you have any questions about plays here on the Thanksgiving slate. Also, consider joining our Discord. There's a link to join the Discord below every video, above the description, right there for you every single time. We'd love to see you in there, talking to other Occupy staff and members about every single NFL DFS slate throughout the rest of the season. That is going to do it for this video, folks. Once again, thank you for watching. I'm Chris for Occupy, and we'll talk to you soon.